Welcome to our very first episode of Perfectly Human. Today's topic, which we're going to be exploring, is the pursuit of success.
Yes.
Not the pursuit of happiness.
No, it's not like the movie. It's not like the movie. It's pursuit of success.
Yes.
So, first of all, why have we chosen this topic? So, we have chosen this topic because it comes up in our coaching all the time.
All the time.
And during the years, over the years rather, I have always been talking to my clients about, okay, what is your definition of success,
Yeah.
etc. So yes, this is the reason why we have chosen it. At the end of the day, we all seem to be striving for something.
Yes.
And sometimes people get to stop and think, hold on, what am I striving for?
Yeah. Or why am I doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is this success that we're talking about?
Yes.
So today we're going to do two things, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about what is the definition of success. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, so how do we know that we are successful?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. What are
Okay.
the measures of success? So it's really
Yes.
interesting because when we were looking at this topic, I started, as you do, go on Google and start looking at what does success mean, definitions of success. What was really interesting is what came up. Your standard things come up like, in Western cultures, we look at success as money, fame, power. And there were a lot of things around, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be successful. So if you set your goals, if you have timelines, etc., you will be successful. So what are the behaviors around it?
Lots of literature around this.
Yeah, there is. But you see, that's the thing. And I think sometimes we don't really stop and think about it, right? And so then I started looking at, what does the Buddhist culture say about success? And that was really interesting. What came up around that is one definition I came across was in Buddhism, it's being a sincere human being is what success is. So then I started looking at what does Hinduism say? I'm Hindu.
Which is an interesting perspective.
Yes.
Because it's really very anchored on the being.
Right.
Not the having.
Not the having.
Yes,
and
not
I
the
think
having.
that's interesting.
Yes.
And in the Hindu scriptures, it actually talks about success in terms of stages of life. So it looks at the first stage of life and the second stage of life. And interestingly enough, what came up was, something I didn't expect. So the first stage of life, it talks about success being the pursuit of education, wealth, family, and then there was something else as well, fame, actually,
fame. Interesting.
fame, which I didn't expect. Then it talks about the second half of life. And in the second half of life, what it talks about is that we kind of come across this existential crisis, right? Where we start asking, we do, definitely, right? Where we talk about like what is and what it says in the Hindu scriptures is, what is the essence of my soul? What is life really calling me to achieve, right? And I guess in modern day terms, we would look at that in terms of being like a midlife crisis, right?
Totally.
And I don't know, I know that a lot of my clients, they will come to me, when they've been in a career for like 20, 25 years. And they're at that point where I've been doing this for so long. And then they start asking those questions, how do I want the rest of my life to be? And
Yes.
that's where we then start.
I agree with you because
Yeah.
I think that is so interesting to see clients at different ages
Yeah.
in the coaching.
Completely.
In your 30s, 20s, 30s, you are really starting in the world of work. You're sort of learning to ride this roller coaster of all these demands. Lots of women, men, they are getting married, they're having children. Of course, you are learning more the ropes, let's say, or the how to do things, as you're saying.
How to learn life.
Yes, exactly. It's like
How to live it.
how not to mess up
How
big
not
time.
to mess it up. Yes.
And then as you get into your 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
definitely a lot of the people that I coach at that age, they are really talking about impact.
Yeah.
They are talking about purpose. Legacy.
Legacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that the Hinduism is saying we have a first part where we are kind of learning and then getting into the second run, basically.
Well, what's interesting is what it also says is that we can't ask that question around our, meaning or legacy or the existential bit in the first half of life.
That's very interesting.
That is interesting. And so I just think that, and it's true, because sometimes,
Because you're not concerned about that at
you're
that
not
point.
really.
Yes.
And I guess what you're striving for are what we term as the Western ideals of success, right? And so I guess the question is,
I think in the first half of your life, success is a little bit more, you don't kind of stop to think about it as something personal. You are just going for those perhaps values that are being given to us. So let's talk about the Western values for a second, right? So obviously I find very interesting the sort of the East and West divide around success, basically. So you've been talking a little bit more about Eastern cultures and how they would see success. I definitely think that, I mean, if we look at Western cultures and the as I always say, the more West you go, like going into sort of US, for instance, that American dream is all really very anchored on materialistic success, right? Is more about the having, and is how capitalism has translated it. And of course, let's not forget that the US and capitalism has been our economic model and has been the nation that we have looked at for a while in terms of values, etc. So yes, so I think that lots of people at the beginning of their lives especially, they are getting into that kind of roller coaster in a way. It's like you come into work and you need to be somebody. You need to become somebody, like that big title, etc. Right? So all of those things are important, and that's how we measure success at that point as well, which we will get in a moment in terms of measuring, basically. Yes. But anyway, so lots of cultures are explaining success in different ways.
Yeah, but I also think it depends where you're starting from. Right?
Totally.
Because it's relative. Okay. Like, let's say, for example, you are starting from a place where you have grown up in, I don't know, the slums of Kibera or a council estate in London somewhere, and success may be being able to afford your own home, having a mortgage, getting a steady job, right? And buying your first car, right?
Yes.
But let's say you're born into an environment where the family has a holiday home in the south of France, and so I think it does depend.
It's quite different, yes.
It's quite different, and so I think it's also where are you starting from? What is going on in your life? For example, if I'm an alcoholic, let's say, getting through the day without having a drink could be my idea of success.
Yes.
Or if I'm struggling with manic depression, right? Getting through the day, getting out of bed, doing a grocery shop could be.
So in that sense, success, what you're making me think is that in that sense, success is almost like taking that next step. For like it can be bigger or smaller, but it's like, what's next for you, let's say,
completely.
If that makes sense.
And I think that shifts, right? It changes. Like, I know when I was working in corporate world in England, success was very much around, getting a great result on a project or delivering X, Y, Z, meeting the bottom line. But when I became a mother, the idea of success shifted. Right? So I think it depends. But often I think we are fed this idea of what success should be.
Totally.
And often it is materialistic. It is, and one of the things I found interesting, I think you were telling me earlier, that a lot of your clients come to you and say, Angie, I want to be CEO.
Yes, totally. So again, we are talking about cultures and we are talking about different perceptions around success. So in Kenya, like all my... every single client I have talked to in Kenya, sooner or later, this thing comes up.
Which is like
client. All the not only the CEO. Well, the CEO is definitely there. It's like everybody has to be CEO, which I always go a bit like, well, when we are all CEOs, then who is going to do different work in the organization, really? But yes, I'm also talking about these other expectations, right? So there's always expectation, like, if not CEO, if not a particular title, then a particular career, or people are expecting that everybody's doing a PhD, So all of these things are incredible expectations that we grow up with. And that's why coaching is so wonderful, I have to say, right? Because this is the time where they are stopping to think oh, wow, I have taken on this definition of success from others.
True.
Okay.
Very true.
I have never kind of stopped to think what it would be success for me
Right.
if I defined it, basically,
Yes.
right?
And I think, and I love that, just being able to stop and think. And what I find is so many people don't do that. They don't give themselves that grace and give themselves that space to do that. And what I find is people, run themselves into the ground, working 14-hour days, not spending time with their families. And then when I ask them, like, okay, so why are you doing this? They just look at me like,
They don't
"I
have
don't
a
know."
response, right?
Then
don't
they
have a
ask
response.
themselves that question as well.
Yes,
So I
yes.
guess, what we're saying here, right, is around, what does success mean?
Yes.
And I guess what we're saying is that I think it's very much around what does it mean to you as an individual, right?
Yes.
And giving yourself some time to think about that,
Yes.
right?
By the way, this is also definition that is also evolving, because we also looked up at the definition that Eckhart Tolle
Right.
gives about success,
Oh, I
right? And we're going to
love
read this
that.
because we have to read it for you guys.
Yes.
So we're going to look at the paper for a second and and read this. So Eckhart Tolle says, don't wait to be successful at some future point.
Yeah.
Have a successful relationship with the present moment,
Right.
and be fully present in whatever you're doing that is success.
Right.
So it's quite a lot there.
That is
basically.
a lot there.
Yes.
And I don't know if any of you have read his book, The Power of Now, which is around just being present in the moment. I struggle with that. So many people I work with struggle with that because we're always trying to get somewhere.
We're always getting distracted,
Completely.
thinking
And-
about what else do we need to do, where else we need to go.
But it's that relationship. If I do this, then I will be successful.
Yes.
If I get
Yes.
that,
Yes.
then I will be successful. So it is that kind of if and then,
Yes.
if and when relationship, right? Which is very different to what Eckhart Tolle is
Yes.
talking about,
Yes.
right?
And quite frankly, I'm also getting a little bit over all these definitions of if you do this, you achieve that, or if you do this, you will be that, or leaders should be like this, or should. I mean, it's like
I
it's so
know,
prescriptive
it is
and
really
predetermined
prescriptive.
and
It is.
pre-described, and it's like,
Yeah.
hello, where is that allowing me to be who really I am,
Yes,
basically,
completely,
right?
Completely. And I think that's so true, especially with leaders.
Yes.
Great leaders should be blah, blah, blah. And the other thing, which we were talking about, which was earlier before we were recording this, is, we have the Forbes top 100 richest people in the world, right? And so that's deemed as a measure of success.
Yes.
But are those people happy? Are they fulfilled? And do we have a top 100 people who are happy?
But this is what I realized, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at these, how do you call them in English?
What?
Rankings. If you
Rankings.
look at these rankings, basically. Sorry, my Spanish going
Yeah.
in, really. If you look at these rankings, that tells you exactly what is being valued or seen as success.
Right.
Because if you look at the kind of these Forbes richest men I say men because it tends to be a man.
Well,
But,
it
you
is
know, it's-
shifting. It is shifting.
It is shifting, but yes, and anyway, shifting, and we'll talk another time about this. But
Yes, we
women
will.
are doing very different things with money than men are. But yes, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk
another
about
time.
that.
but yes, so I was just talking about. So you have here a demonstration of how success is being seen, basically, and
Yes.
what's rewarded, basically. Yeah?
Right.
And yeah, I'm sure that, of course, Jeff Bezos, fantastic guy, has built something that was completely innovative out of nowhere. But yeah, we during the pandemic, I think we really realized we don't get to appreciate properly all those people that come out, all those
Yes.
nurses, doctors, etc.
True.
People that give themselves to others every single day.
Yeah.
That is success. It's
Yeah.
success to be able to get one more person over the line,
Completely.
etc. Right?
But yeah, and so I guess then it goes back to that internal
Yes.
meaning of success and validation versus the external meaning of success and validation.
Yes.
So I guess that's what we're talking in terms of what is the definition of success. I guess the answer to that really is what do you make it to be for yourself?
Yes.
Right? And so if we go back to like how then do we measure success? If we can't have like a sorry. If we can't have a clear or a unified definition, then how do we measure it? Right?
Yes.
What are we measuring it against, I guess?
So
the question.
you have to wonder about that, right? So as we are saying, it's a question that we have to put for ourselves, basically. It's a question that I give a lot in coaching, definitely. At some point in time, I'm really asking, okay, so what is your definition of success for you?
Right.
You know? And by the way, you can also have a definition of success in your different roles. Because not your personal success is not only associated with the work that you do.
Yes.
You've talked about being a mom, and that is also, like you can be conscious and intentional about being a mom and have your own measure of success about how do you want to be a mom, basically.
But that's interesting because a lot of the time and a lot of the people I come across and work with, their definition of success and measure of success is very inextricably linked to the success of the business.
Totally.
So if the business is failing, I am failing, right? I am a failure because my business is a failure. I'm a success because my business is a success. And one of the things, and I think Brené Brown talks about this as well, is that you are not your business.
Yes,
Right?
by the way.
The identity, the ego is all caught up in that. And it's, well, actually, who are you without? And actually, I ask this question to a lot of my clients is, who are you without the business? Right? Who are you if this business didn't exist or if this role didn't exist?
Yes,
who
if this
are
job
you?
didn't exist.
Completely. So I think one of the things I would really encourage people to do is think about success in all the different important roles you play.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's mother, sister, friend, husband, spiritual leader.
Yes.
Whatever that is. So
Yes.
key thing that we want you to get out of this
Yes.
conversation that we had is, what does success mean to you? Trying to make sure that it's internally kind of driven, not externally. So it's not about what other people expect of you.
Yes.
And look at success in terms of the different roles you play in life. Because, I believe that having a full life is what creates happiness. It's not all about your work. Anything you want to add to that?
Yes, so I would just add, we talked about values, so focus on your values for that definition of success, not other people's values, and maybe actually even reflect if those values that you thought were yours are actually yours, or they are just coming from your environment.
Yeah, and they're prescribed.
And then, yes, courage. Have the courage to really define your own journey. I think courage is a big word for this second round that we are talking about as well, by the way.
For the what?
For this second round, courage
Yes.
is a good word.
Yeah.
It's like just have the courage to be yourself.
Yeah.
And to walk your own journey. Yes. Okay.
So the next session that we will be focusing on will be on anxiety.
Yes.
And what causes it and what do we do about that. And then we will also be looking at my personal experience with anxiety, because I have struggled with that for a number of years. And just remember to know that you are perfectly human, just the way you are.
Indeed. We'll see you next time. Have fun.